Hello and welcome to Self Talk. I'm Rachel Astarte. Today, my guest is Claire Lautier. She is a 25-year showbiz veteran and an award-winning transformational coach who helps performers take charge of their lives and advance their careers through alignment with spiritual law. Claire, thank you so much for being on Self Talk.
Oh, Rachel, it's my pleasure. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm very excited to get started. So, I'm going to have you jump right in and tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are now and what you do now.
Oh, wow. It seems like a different life. It feels like that was a different person back then. But I did spend 25 years in show business, heavily involved. And the thing is, I wasn't happy, not very happy. There were highs and lows. There were great moments, and there were, not so great moments. But on the personal level, I think I struggled with a lot of ego, and I had really attached my identity and my sense of myself to my career and how it was going, or how it wasn't going, if that's sometimes the case was. And so I was really up and down depending on, I was really determining my self-worth from my identity as an actor. And as anybody knows who has done that, attached their sense of self to what they do in the world or some other limiting identity, it's a way to crash and burn eventually, because I think life is designed to bring us into an understanding that that's not who we are.
Mhm.
And so we have to find out, sometimes through pain and sometimes through suffering, some kind of unhappiness that drives us to a search for what's real and what's true. So I had sort of taken a break from the business for a couple of years out of just frustration and not really having a clear sense of why I was unhappy or how to help myself or what to do about it. And I had a really painful case of frozen shoulder at the time. This was 2012, by the way. So 2012, that was really, my soul was like, hey, it's the Aquarian age officially.
Yeah, right.
Let's get you going. But I took a break, and I was just in a lot of pain physically with my shoulders. And it was so strange because I was a teacher of movement. I taught gyrotonic expansion system. I had always done some kind of body work, and I didn't have any injuries or any reason to be unable to move my arms, basically. And so that kind of freaked me out. And I intuitively knew that there was some kind of spiritual connection there. There was some reason why, that was happening that was other than physical. And a year of religiously going to physical therapy did not budge the thing.
Wow.
And and literally I was sitting on the table at the physical therapist's office while he was working on my shoulder. And two words dropped into my head: Kundalini yoga.
Mm.
And I had done Kundalini yoga for years, off and on, since I was in my early 20s.
Mhm.
And I had looked for a class in my area. I lived in Canada at the time. And when we first moved there, I looked for a class, couldn't find one near me. And I thought, oh, well, too bad. And as those two words dropped into my head, I thought, maybe there's someone nearby now. And I did a search on internet, and sure enough, there was now a teacher in the area. She was 40 minutes away, but I was willing to make the trek, and I started going to her class, and she was a wonderful teacher. And even though I was in so much pain, and a lot of the exercises I could hardly do because it was so hard for me to move my arms and keep them in positions and stuff like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I mean, after class, I was throbbing. My whole body was throbbing, but my shoulders in particular were throbbing. And I thought, this feels like a good thing, even though it was pain.
Mm.
And I'm telling you, within a few weeks, I started to change. I started to notice a big difference in the, range of motion of my shoulders and in how I felt just overall. And so I started going, 2-3 times a week to class whenever I could. And then we went to California for over the Christmas holidays. And of course, in California, there's a lot of Kundalini yoga. So I
Sure,
threw
sure.
myself in. I was going to class 5 days a week. And before long, I had almost all the movement back in my shoulders and a lot less pain. And I thought, well, this is what I needed all along. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go do teacher training. So I just became lit up for Kundalini yoga, even though I'd been aware of it most of my adult life, and I'd been involved with it quite heavily at times. It just came rushing back. And in my early years, I had considered teacher training. And I remember that in my 20s, teacher training for Kundalini yoga cost $850. And to me, that was like way too much money. And I also think I just had too much ego, and I had too much that I needed to prove to myself in the world somehow. And I think I sensed that if I went down that path, that there was no return. And the ego did not want to die at that time. And so, so it held on pretty quick, pretty fast. And so anyway, all those years later, I was in my 40s at the time. I just, I committed myself fully to a path of training, and not so that I could become a teacher per se, but so that I could deepen my own practice and understand more about myself. And that sort of started a road that I guess you could say was interrupted for a period of time, but I went back onto the path, and that led me into that really led me onto a path of transformation, because within a couple of years, I had met my spiritual teacher, who is a Kundalini yoga master here in France. And once I met him, and I met him by accident, in quotes, my whole life turned upside down. And I had a theater contract at the time that I was supposed to be in for 8 months. And I came back home to start rehearsal, and I cried every day of rehearsal because I just felt like I was not in the right place. I wanted to go back to France. I wanted to study with this teacher. I wanted to do anything I could to stay involved with him, because it had opened up something in me that felt so important. Like my whole life had been leading up to that moment. So I backed out of my contract, something I had never ever done before. And it really scared me to make a move like that. I thought, nobody's going to take me seriously. I'm never going to work again. And, it was a scary thing to do, and I'm not going to make any money. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
But fortunately, I have a very supportive, wonderful husband who saw what I was going through, and he was like, well, just go do it, and then that was, basically a 7-year spiritual odyssey that completely changed my life and my perspective. And I'm forever grateful to life for putting me on that path, and to the grace that that was working in my life at the time, that led me there, in spite of my best efforts to resist. So
That's how it works.
yeah. So
Yeah.
for a long time, I didn't know, I wasn't really an actor anymore. I wasn't actively looking for work, although I did do some gigs during that time that were some of the best experiences of my whole career, really joyful. And, I could actually really enjoy being an actor again, and be there for the right reasons, be there, from my heart instead of from my ego. But then the energy just kind of went out of it for me. And I had not cleared a path for what I was going to do. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that I wasn't able to continue in the path that I'd been on previously. So one thing led to another, and I ended up going in for life coaching certification. And I thought, what am I doing? but as soon as I studied it, and as soon as I saw what was involved, I thought, well, this is what I've been doing naturally for years. And
Right.
for years, people had been, coming to me for counsel of one kind or another, just sort of, I don't know, it was just the way that things operated, I guess. And then eventually, with my background in Kundalini yoga, and I did become a teacher, and then a teacher trainer, and got pretty heavily involved with my teacher's school here in France, and I still am. I started to blend the spiritual technology of alignment with spiritual law with the spiritual technology of Kundalini yoga, and to create courses and experiences based on the bringing together those modalities. And then I realized, well, I should be serving the community that I came from, which is performing artists and show business professionals. And because I know their experience, and I know what they go through, and I know how hard it was for me with the struggles that, that those people face, and that, so I knew that I could help, because I know I have been in their shoes. And so, yeah, I mean, that's sort of a long story, but that's how I came to do what I do, and to live an independent lifestyle. I'm location independent now. So I live in France, where I love to be. And I'm here with most of my family, actually, as it turns out. And a few hours from the ashram where I teach and mentor and translate. And I'm part of amazing experiences there that help people transform their lives, and working with my own clients, and teaching yoga, and just in general, feeling like what a great privilege it is, and an honor to shine the light that we are into the world, and to help people at this time of huge transformation and planetary consciousness to step forward into their ascension stream without fear, and to understand that everything really is okay, and it is going to be okay, more than okay.
Yeah, and that's something everybody needs to hear. Thank you. What a beautiful story. I am also a Kundalini yoga practitioner, and have been for years. And so another thing we have in common.
I did not know that.
Yes, it saved my life. It saved my life. And I mean that. I mean, there's, for those who are interested in Kundalini, it's a whole, like, I tried to do yoga for many years, and it was beautiful, but it wasn't speaking to me. Kundalini was my jam. As soon as I started doing it, I was like, oh, this is yoga. Like, that's what I've been looking for. And when you were talking about the pain when you first started, and a lot of people in my Sangha have the same issue, right? So it's like, I've got this pain, I can't do the movements, I can't do the kriyas because I'm in pain. And one of the beautiful things, and I was one of those people, I could do it, but I would be in pain. And one of the most beautiful teachings that I received, and I wonder if you could speak about this briefly, and then I'd love to move on to what you're actually doing now with it, but is that when we have that pain, it's as though it's coming to the surface to be released. And so even when we have big emotional moments or resistance, I mean, I remember going through some kriyas just like, just all, like, and I realized, oh, this is what's happening, because we're moving that energy through the chakra, the energy system, and it's coming out. So, and that's true of pain as well. Yes. So obviously we don't want to push ourselves and injure ourselves further. We have to be gentle with our bodies, but at the same time, not to be afraid of the pain or emotional or physical that might come up, because it is being released. Is that your?
Completely. And Rachel, I just have to go back to what you said about, when you discovered Kundalini yoga, because it was exactly the same thing for me. In my early 20s, I was living in New York City. I was doing yoga in lots of studios in New York City. And I remember just not really connecting with it and thinking to myself, I ought to love yoga.
Right.
I feel like I should, and I couldn't understand why. Just, after a while, I kind of ran out of steam, wasn't that interested. The first time I went to Kundalini yoga class, I was like, exactly like you, this is my jam. I was like, oh, yeah. This is my yoga. This
I was looking for.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And I had such a powerful experience. Yes. My first class, I was like, what? oh my God. And then I was hooked,
Right. Exactly.
but what you say is true. Kundalini yoga it's not for everyone because it's everything at once. It's the full
You're right.
meal deal. You get,
Yep.
you've got asana, you've got pranayama, you've got mudra, you've got mantra, you've got visualization, you've got, your
Yes.
focusing, concentration. It brings all of it. And so it brings your changes that much faster.
Right.
And it brings up your unresolved energy that much
Mhm.
faster. And sometimes people will, jump into Kundalini yoga not realizing how powerful it is, and they will get scared by what the universe brings up for them. Now the truth is they can handle it. They can, because the universe never brings you anything that you can't handle, but they get scared and they
Mhm.
run away. And listen, that happened to me a number of times. It's sort of like a self-correcting system where it spits you out if you're not ready,
Mhm.
and it'll circle you, bring you back into the orbit when you are ready. And that
Right.
happened 2 or 3 times in my life until the last time where I was like, okay, I'm all in.
Mhm.
And what you said about the pain, and understanding the difference between the kind of physical pain where you're like, oh, hold on, something's wrong, I'm not going to push here because I don't want to hurt myself, right?
Right.
That is a lot less common than the mental pain that we have, which is like,
Right.
I can't do this,
Oh my
I
God.
don't want to, and I'm tired and I want to stop, right? The mind gives us every reason why we shouldn't continue with something that we can continue with. And even if your mind is like, no, I cannot hold my arms up another moment,
Yes, exactly.
and you get angry, and
Yes.
it's bringing up exactly what you need to have brought up, because actually what is your experiences on the mat is a diagnostic for how you deal with stuff in life. When you get put under pressure in your life, this is how you are, and
Right.
and so it teaches you so much about how you respond, how you react to things, right? And
Mhm.
you want to stop, and because you don't want to feel that. We have resistance to
Right.
feeling our feelings in the first place, and we have resistance to change, right? And so after a while, if you stick with it, you realize what's going on, and then it becomes a really wonderful teacher, in addition to being a completely genius way of transcending the intellect, and things that you can't understand with your mind. So people think that they can understand everything with their mind, and if they just understand spiritual growth, they'll be able to do it. It's like, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
The mind is a wonderful tool, but it's a terrible tyrant in your life if you let it control everything. And at some point, we have to leave the mind behind. And the yoga goes right through the body, and it rewires the nervous system and causes the glandular system to fire in new ways, to create new patterns in your structure. That's how you change habits, right? You change old habits into new habits
Mhm.
by rewiring your nervous system, basically. And that's what the yoga does. It works with the nervous system and the glandular system in a way that is really beyond our understanding,
Right.
to bring about change. So for people who are really heady or brainy or intellectual, or think they can, yes, I know, me too, I'm also raising my hand.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's trial by fire. Yeah. Literally.
and
Well,
it's such a
fire.
revelation that way,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
such a revelation. You're like, oh, I don't know what just happened, right? And it's such a relief not to know, in some ways, not to know what just happened. You try to understand it, but you can't, because it's beyond you. So it stretches you, and it brings you outside of yourself and outside of your limited conception that you have of yourself as a human being, into something greater, into something vaster.
Yeah. And it is like coming home. That's what I felt like. It's like, oh, okay, this is the thing. And I felt so, we were talking about anger coming up, just like childlike rage. I don't want to do this. And I was like, wow, Miss Thing. Okay. So, all right. So let's just keep doing it and see what happens. And then you hit that surrender moment, you know,
Yeah.
and the pain and I, because I get very intellectual as well. So like, counting the chance and what if I miss one, like it's okay. It's like, just go with what it is. And when you let go, that's when it seems that's when the magic happens. I mean, I don't mean to
Yes.
make it so Disney, but you know, it's when things start to open for you. There were things going on in my life at that time I know I would not have been able to deal with properly if I had not been practicing Kundalini.
Yes.
And it really does make a shift. So I want to transition into your work, because you touched on a very, very important point, that we are in a major transitional shift right now.
Yeah.
And how important it is for us to shift into a loving space in
Mhm.
our lives individually. So this work, this podcast, the work that I do with my patients in therapy, is all about building a foundation of self in love, and so that we can give back to the world in the way that we're meant to give back to the world. And you talk in a little bit about like releasing those things that aren't serving us, the shame, the guilt, and accelerating growth. And that sounds beautiful. How does that happen in your practice? I mean, yeah, in 25 words or fewer. Just kidding. I know it's a lot to bite off, but if you could give us an idea of, so that people know that it's possible.
Yeah. Well, here's the good news, everybody. The good news is that it's never been more possible than it is now. We are being helped in every way, on every level. We are being bombarded with so much light from the sun. I mean, so I don't know if you've ever heard of this term mass coronal ejection, but these are the flares that come off
Oh,
of the sun, and this is plasmic energy, which is liquid light, spiritually speaking, that is we're being literally bombarded by this light in amounts that we have never ever seen before. I mean, off the charts. So, whereas I think we would have an average of 40 coronal mass ejections per year, now we're up to 1,000,
wow.
and so like the astrologically, it doesn't depend. Any discipline that you go to that studies the cosmology and what it is to be human inside in the universe, as far as we can understand it right now, is saying the same thing, which is it's off the hook right now. What's going on? We are being aided. We are being helped. We are going through a major transition in consciousness. And the planet has already shifted. The earth has already shifted. And all of us who live on her, we have to catch up now. So, but the help is all there. So any change that you want to make in your life for the better is going to be supported by this entire universe. And even though, on the one hand, when you look at what's going on the planet right now, and you look at things that there's a lot of distressing situations. We've been through the ringer the last couple of years with this
Yeah.
pandemic, and not to mention everything else that's going on. It's really important to be discerning here, because it's tempting to, when you see what's happening in the world, to allow yourself to be pulled into the trauma, the sadness, the grief, the anger, all of these lower vibrational feelings. And a lot of people, out of compassion, are get sucked in emotionally to these situations, and they allow their own vibration to be dragged down. And that is not helping anybody. It's not helping you, and it's not helping anybody else. I think it's a really good idea nowadays to minimize your consumption of media, because all the media does is propagate negativity and fear. And what we really, really need on this planet now is for everyone to reach down inside themselves and find it's there. Find their joy, find their lightness of being, connect to their hearts, and realize that everything is going in the right direction. It really is. And these things that are happening on the planet that don't seem to be going in the right direction are signs of an old paradigm that is dying. It's dying off. And these are the death throes of that old paradigm. So don't contribute to the energy of that old paradigm and keep it alive for longer than necessary by, getting caught up in fear, anger, sadness. Instead, focus on the love and the light that is everywhere present and that is within you and that is you, and start to cultivate that instead, because that is how you truly can help other people. And of course, you can help yourself that way. So that's like the first major thing that I think I want to say is that, it's all happening. It's happening now. And if you want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem, you have to start to master your own vibration and understand that you are in charge of that. Nobody else is in charge of that. And we're really making this big shift from victim consciousness to co-creator consciousness, and understanding that life is not happening to us. It's not happening to us. We are the creative center of our entire universe. And, that's why the work that I do, the work that you do, the coaching industry, especially, the spiritual perspective of coaching is exploding right now, because humans are like, okay, I want help. I want to learn how do I do that? How do I master my vibration? What does that mean? How do I tune into the love and the light? Like, what does that mean? Right. And unless you can attach it to some very practical principles and ground it in your everyday life, then it's just airy fairy new age talk, and it doesn't make any difference at all. Right. So, my work, I think, is, and I think your work too, Rachel, is really about making this practical and making it something that you can live on a daily basis. And spirituality is completely useless if it's not practical. Real spirituality is incredibly practical, and it's very simple. Okay. Yes. So it doesn't mean that it's easy to put into practice, because we have a lot of resistance and we have ego, right? But it is always simple. Very simple. I teach the same principles over and over and over and over again through different lenses, but we need to hear it over and over and over again, because deep down, our programming tells us that it isn't true, that we can't really have a happy ending, that we're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, because we have a many thousands year history of war, strife, struggle, competition. Well, that was the hallmark of the old paradigm. And we had to go through that. There are reasons why we had to go through that. We had to learn through struggle, through adversity, and we had to learn to let go through all of those experiences. But now the tide has turned. It's already turned, and it's getting better and better and better. So I cannot emphasize enough, and I'm saying it over and over again to my clients or anywhere I speak, it's good. This is good. This is a good thing. Everything that's happening now is for our good. And there's nothing but love coming to us from everywhere in this universe, love and support, because what's happening on Earth is the greatest show in the universe. This is a major explosion of light, in the very best sense of the word, that's happening on this planet. So anything that you want to do, any dream that you have in your heart, any changes that you want to make personally for the better in your life, any way that you want to feel, it's all possible, more possible than it's ever been. You just need to learn how to align with the law. When I say the law, I mean spiritual principle that's true, that's always true, that's always been true, that's eternally true. And when you understand what these very basic principles are, and you understand how to align with them, and when you help yourself with from my perspective, when you help yourself with the spiritual tool, this technology of Kundalini yoga, it goes that much faster. And, and that's another thing, is that it takes a lot less time nowadays for us to go a further distance. We're into the quantum now. So we're into the quantum leaps now. And it doesn't have to be linear. It doesn't have to be progressive necessarily. We can make huge leaps and bounds in our understanding and in the embodiment of things, if we're open to it, and if we're willing to do the work, to commit to ourselves, right? To commit to the magnificence and the nobility which is inherent in our very nature, right? We are the children of God. We are the children of the Creator, and we are fractals of that infinite power and presence and the love and the light that created this entire universe. We just forgot.
Yes, that's the pain. And I talk to my patients about this all the time. The pain that at the source of every piece of suffering that humans experience is the separation from God, the separation from our home, from our creation. And we do carry that spark within us. We have to. It's just, see, I'm a science brain too. So I love quantum physics because to me, it's just the same as talking about spirituality, because it's right there, and, it's very interesting too, from a shamanic perspective, because I also practice shamanism. Alberto Villoldo talks about humans evolving from Homo sapiens to Homo luminous, where we are able to do what you're speaking of, remember our connection, remember the light, and to be able to self-heal using that light.
Yes. And what you just said, I just got chills, because actually one of the things that Kundalini yoga allows us to do is to bring more light into the body, to allow the nervous system to tolerate more spiritual energy, right? Because there was, I don't know if you're familiar with the work of David Hawkins, but he said, for a long time, and he called Homo luminous, he called Homo spiritus, same thing, right? And he said that we were evolving into the next, that we had evolved now to the next, I don't remember what they call it, genus or whatever, of what the human is, and when that is Homo spiritus. And in Kundalini yoga, strengthens the nervous system and allows you to hold more light, literally, in your body, because we are photons. That's what we are. And so, the nervous system was originally designed only to hold a certain amount of light, but we have evolved beyond that now, and we can hold more light. We have more strands of our DNA that's being activated. We are actually changing from the inside out. And this is what God immanent is. God is within us, literally within us. Right. And so the process of illumination, spiritual growth, illumination, enlightenment, literally becoming more light, and that's happening in the body. It's happening in the body as well as, on the, we can't, we can't separate ourselves from this body either. And this is the form. We're in form for a reason. We've decided to have this experience in a material body for a reason. This body is learning to hold more light. And so that's why people have ascension symptoms, or, some people are experiencing ascension symptoms. Maybe some things that you're going through are actually down to ascension symptoms. In other words, your vibration is going up. You are being asked to hold more light, and the body is adjusting. The system has to adjust to becoming a new human being, literally.
Yeah. And there are growing pains attached to that, that was something else that you said, another quote that one of my favorite historians in the world is, or historical figures, I should say, is Jesus. And Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. So that's like, there we go. This is all fascinating, and I could talk about this for hours, but I would love to have the, listeners know how they can find you, Claire.
Oh, sure. Well, you can find me through my website, which is clairelautier.com. I assume you'll have those links in your show notes and stuff like that. So you can find me on my website or on Facebook, also through Instagram. And through my podcast, which you'll eventually be seeing Rachel on, because we have way too much in common to miss the opportunity to interview each other. So my podcast is called The Grace Space, and it's been running for about 2 years now. So yeah, those are all different ways that you can connect with me. I think I put a link to how you can sign up for a complimentary breakthrough session with me, if that's something that you're interested in, for either private individual coaching or for group programs. So those are different ways that you can get involved with the work that I do. I also have a membership community, which is called Grace Circle. And so that's another powerful way to connect with other people who have the same values as you do. If you believe that this is your time to let your light shine and to step out of fear and into love, that's the way to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. And it's so necessary. Claire Lautier, thank you so much for being on Self Talk. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Rachel. It's been a pleasure to be here. And I just want to send out a blessing to all of your listeners right now and to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Satnam.
Satnam.
Hi, this is Rachel, the host of Self Talk with Rachel Astarte, also known as the best podcast you've never heard. Well, let's see if we can change that. If you would take a moment, please, to hit the subscribe button and maybe even that little bell next to it that lets you know when we release a new episode, which is every other week. Thank you so much.